Hello guys, welcome to Matura Express. My name is Victoria and today's topic will be the demonstration exam on environment and pollution. Okay, so first I would like to talk about the schedule of today. So first we'll be looking at the demonstration exam in greater detail. Then we'll go through it step by step. So the first we'll be talking about your future career, types of pollution, and then we'll read part of an article together, summarize it, we'll look at the arguments, and then we'll talk about the text. But now we'll look at it in greater detail. Okay, so if you could switch to my visual. Thank you. So as you can see here, this is a demonstration exam. I will zoom in a little bit for you. So this will be the exact steps you will be going through during your exam. And I think we already talked about that a lot. So first there will be a short introduction of yourself. You will be asked some questions about your career, future plans, etc. And this is like kind of like a warm-up for you in order to get used to talking in English first. So they don't really want you to dive right into the topic. So they want you to do a little bit of small talk. And here you can tell the audience basically everything that is on your mind, but keep in mind that this part will only be maybe a maximum 3 minutes. And you can tell the professor how you got into the situation of doing your A-levels on an alternative way. For example, you can tell them about your motivations, and you can tell them what you want to do further on after having acquired your A-levels. Okay, I think that is enough for the introduction. Now I would like to switch to task number 1, which will be about pollution in our environment. So I think we covered the topic already in another streaming session, but I would like to go into greater detail, and I would also like to take some notes in order for you to really be able to read the words, because there's a lot of difficult vocabulary concerning this topic, because you have to be really specific, and I want to write that down for you. So task number 1 is pollution in our environment. It's like a role play, monologue speaking, and I won't be doing the exam like it would be in your presentation. I will also make some comments, so it wouldn't be a real authentic situation for me. Okay, so the situation is you have just completed 6 months volunteering on a ship with Greenpeace. You have been asked to give a radio interview, listeners are the examiners, about pollution in our environment. And your task is to give a brief introductory talk to your listeners about pollution in general. Talk about the types of pollution, causes of pollution, and the effects of pollution. And of course you have some time before the presentation in order to prepare yourself and to feel at ease when talking in front of the audience. So you also have some notes. Before we start with that, or we will start with that, but I will take some notes, and I will talk about 6 different types of pollution, and I will do it step by step. So first of all, I will talk about the type of pollution, then about the causes, and then about the effects. So I think, in my opinion, it makes more sense to talk about, when you're talking about a specific type of pollution, to also list the notes or the effects of that specific kind of pollution right away, in order for the audience to remember or to really connect the effects with that type of pollution. Well, in general, you could say that there are several types of pollution, and it is really important for people to know how they are caused and why, in order for them to prevent them or help to prevent them. Okay, so first of all, I would like to start with air pollution. And my writing isn't the best, so I will be reading the words all out loud in order for you to really know what they mean. So air pollution is defined as any contamination of the atmosphere. Contamination of the atmosphere. So, and I would suggest you write down only some keywords in your presentation and on your notes, because while a text may help you to read everything out loud by yourself, if you get lost and you'll have a text in front of you, it's very hard to find your way back into the speech, whereas with keywords it's easier for you to get back into your presentation. And air pollution is caused by many different factors, but I only wrote down 3 of them, which is vehicle or manufacturing, okay, manufacturing exhaust. Exhaust is, I will write it into parentheses, it's Abgas. So, as I already mentioned before, concerning pollution and environment, it's important to be specific what you're talking about. So I think it leaves a way more better impression when you say exhaust instead of vehicle pollution or pollution caused by cars. Okay, then forest fires, volcanic eruptions, so Vulkanausbrüche, I hope you can read that, dry soil. So there are many different factors. In your presentation, maybe you should just list 1 or 2. I think that would be enough of that category. Dry soil, erosion, oh, sorry. Which is Bodenabtragung. So soil is like Boden, Erde, and other natural sources, but I won't write that down. And then another cause of air pollution is building constructions. So if there is something being built, construction or demolition. Demolition is when a building is demolished. So if it's a really old building and you can't really renew it, you have to destroy it. So if you have any questions on the vocabulary or anything else, just write in the comments because it's really specific. Okay, and the effects, I'll write that, effects of air pollution is smog increase, I'll write that down. High rain acidity, rain acidity is saurer Regen, which is very bad for buildings and for soil, which means Boden. Saurer Regen. Okay. Crop depletion, which is Ernteminderung. Okay. So for each topic, I think I will be listing about 3 causes or sources of the type of pollution and also effects. So to sum it all up, you could say in the presentation, okay, first I would like to talk about air pollution, which can be defined as the contamination of the atmosphere. It's mainly caused by vehicle or manufacturing exhaust, which is basically cars or industries. Then it's also caused, so a second source of air pollution are forest fires, volcanic eruptions, dry soil erosions, which are basically environmental factors, but also caused by humans. So volcanic eruptions, I'm not really sure, I'm not pro on that, but I think they're not as much influenced by humankind as, for example, forest fires. And then we have the third and last factor of air pollution is building constructions or demolition, which is also induced by people or humankind. And air pollution may have different effects on the earth or on humankind. First of all, the smog increases, there's higher rain acidity, and it can also lead to crop depletion, which means there is less of crop, or how do you say, sorry? Ernte. Okay, so I would like to leave water pollution by side because we'll talk about that in greater detail. So keep in mind we have air pollution, then we have water pollution. Now I would like to talk about soil pollution, which are also mentioned. Soil pollution. God, my tea looks horrible. Whoops. Okay, I'll just underline that. Which can also be defined as contamination, of the soil, so die Erde, der Boden. Okay, soil pollution can be, so I write down the causes, can be caused by hazardous, this is a set, hazardous waste, And sewage, very specific vocabulary. I hope this is an A. Hope you can read that. Spills. Oh, I forgot. Hazardous means like dangerous, gefährlich. Sewage. Oh, sewage. Sewages. Abfluss. Sewage. And sewage spills is meant that companies or an industry puts contaminated or hazardous waste into their sewage, which then contaminates the groundwater or natural resources or lakes, for example. Then we have non-sustainable farming practices, like glyphosate is also used in farming.
Yes.
Also like glyphosate. Thank you. So you could list that as a current topic concerning non-sustainable farming practices. Non-sustainable. Sustainable means nachhaltig, which then obviously means nicht nachhaltig. Nachhaltig. Okay. And then maybe one last cause. Or maybe, and maybe another important aspect is household dumping, which concerns everyday life and us. So which is something people can prevent, can ameliorate, so verbessern. And then we have the effects of soil contamination. Can lead to poor growth, / reduced crop yields, which basically means Erntegewinn, as we had before. Erntegewinn, loss of wildlife. Oh God. Wildlife. Habitat. This word also exists in German, Habitat, also Wohnort oder Wohngebiet, but it's rather specifically connected with animals. And then one last maybe, water pollution, which is pretty obvious. And you could also say desertification, which is Verwüstung. Oops. I will write it down because it's desert. Actually, I just pronounced it wrong because dessert is something you eat and desert is where a lot of sand is. Desertification. So, to sum it all up, so first we already talked about air pollution. In your presentation you can say, okay, another type of pollution would be soil pollution, which can also be defined as the contamination of the soil. it has different kinds of causes. I would like to list 3 of them. The first one would be hazardous waste and sewage spills, which are mainly caused by companies or industries. Then the second aspect I would like to mention is non-sustainable farming practices. Like here you could list the example of glyphosate, like it's in Europe right now. It's surrounded by a big controversy because it's very bad for the environment. You could also maybe elaborate the controversy a little bit more. Then you can also talk about household dumping and littering, which is something we have in our hands. So these were 3 causes. Now I would like to talk about the effects of soil pollution. First of all, soil pollution can lead to poor growth and reduced crop yields, which has very a bad effect on people's lives, and also economical. It has also economical aspects. Then there's also a loss of wildlife habitats, and it can also lead to water pollution, which is of course a devastating effect for humankind, but not also for humankind, but for a whole ecosystem, because we thrive off of water. It's our main source of life. Okay. Then I would like to talk about a little bit different kind of pollution, which is noise pollution. Noise. I'll write it small. Noise pollution. So, which can be described as undesirable, levels of noises, in parentheses, caused by humans, of course. Okay. Sorry, not the effects, causes. So I think that noise pollution is oftentimes underestimated. So people don't really, it's just my personal opinion, you yourself, you don't really realize how important it is for you to live in silence, or to have a place where you can retreat yourself and to be in silence. Whereas, for example, if you live near the highway, it's very noisy. So I think maybe 1 or 2 days would be enough, and then you would say, okay, it's just too much noise. Okay. So the causes are, of course, as I already mentioned, highway, so traffic. So this is rather simpler vocabulary. Traffic, airports, and one last, maybe concerts. Okay. Then the effects. Hearing loss for people. Oh, I just changed the symbols. Okay. Wildlife disturbances. That's what. I have to look at disturbances. Okay. which is Störungen. Disturbance is Störung, disturbances, Störungen. And then we have a general degradation of lifestyle. Lifestyle. Degradation. A general Verschlechterung. Okay. So, to sum it all up, the third type of pollution I would like to talk about is noise pollution, which can be described as an undesirable level of noises, or undesirable levels of noises caused mainly by human or humankind. The causes are mainly traffic, airports, concerts, and several others, and the effects can be quite devastating. A main effect would be hearing loss, which of course would gradually become worse over time, also step by step. Then we have wildlife disturbances, where I can think about an example where birds in the city or near a city have to zwitschern louder than as if they lived in the woods, because the noise level is so much higher in the cities that they also have to kind of compete with that noise. They have to make some kind of competition in order for them to attract males or mates. Sorry, mates, not males, because they want to attract females, of course. So this would be an example you could add. And then we have general degradation of lifestyle. So if you cannot get your rest, or you never have some kind of silence for yourself, I think it can be really stressful, and it would add to your stress level a lot. And then I would like to talk maybe about 2 more types of pollution, because otherwise I think we won't be able to reach the other text, to go through the other text. So I'll just talk quick because it's so often discussed. Of course, radioactive pollution. Radioactive pollution is usually only around nuclear power plants, but also around atomic bombs. But I hope they are not a problem anymore. So I hope that we won't have the same scenario as in Japan. So I will only be talking about nuclear power plants, which is basically I forgot der Zerfall von Atomen. Could you Google Zerfall? Didn't look that up. I think.
Zerfall is decomposition.
Okay.
Disaggregation. Or disintegration.
You said decomposition?
Decomposition.
Okay, but in that sense, I don't know if it's the correct word in the context, but...
Radioaktiver Verfall?
Yes.
Decay.
Decay. So radioactive decay. Okay. Thank you, my assistant.
You're welcome.
radioactive decay. Decay. Which is caused by nuclear power causes nuclear power plant, which is one word from when you consider the meaning. Improper nuclear waste disposal. So I would say this isn't really something which is in our hands directly to change. Of course, we can change it by, I don't know, demonstrating or making people aware of the dangers of especially improper nuclear waste disposal. And uranium mining operations, but I would say this is already really, really specific, and I would suggest you to focus on the first two causes. Then we have effects. It can cause genetic modification, but not in a good way. You know, if you have seen the photos of Chernobyl, where the offspring is really, it's shocking to look at these photos. Health, cancer, of course. Bless you.
I'm sorry, thank you.
And in general, soil contamination, which then again, well, is not so good. Okay, to sum it up, my fourth type of pollution I would like to mention is radioactive pollution, which is basically radioactive decay when it comes to atoms. I'll just write that in parentheses. The main causes of radioactive pollution are nuclear power plants, improper supervised nuclear power plants, I would say, and improper nuclear waste disposal. I'll just leave it first. And the effects of radioactive pollution can be devastating, as it leads to genetic modifications. For example, the offspring of someone won't be able to procreate, sich fortpflanzen. You may have, I don't know, 12 fingers or some other modifications of your body. Then you can get cancer. There's a high percentage, much higher percentage of people living in contaminated areas to get cancer, of course. And another important point is that it leads to soil contamination, which then again gets into your food, and then again into your body, and then again into your genes, and it's like a vicious cycle. And then the last, do we have some time? 20 minutes. Okay, I think I will leave it with that, with the 4 types of pollution, because we will be talking about water pollution also after that. So if you have any questions concerning these 4 types of pollution, please don't hesitate to ask something in our chat. So this was our first task. Of course, it was way longer when I was talking about that. And then the task number 2 would also be about pollution. but it's about pollution of our oceans. After your talk, you open the discussion up to questions from your listeners about water pollution, including causes, effects, and solution. Use the information from the attached text. The oceans are drowning in plastic and no one is paying attention but one only. See link below as well as your own ideas during the conversation. And at the end of your conversation, your examiners will be asking you maybe 2 or 3 questions each, and well, I think that won't be too hard. Maybe you should elaborate something in greater detail. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the article, which is titled "The Oceans Are Drowning in Plastic and No One's Paying Attention. We're being overwhelmed by our waste." So it's a Huffington Post, and I already read the article at home, and I think we will be reading the first page. Okay, so imagine an area 34 times the size of Manhattan. Now imagine it covered ankle deep in plastic waste, piles of soda bottles and plastic bags, takeout containers by the mile, drinking straw as far as the eye can see. That's a total of about 19 billion pounds of garbage, which is roughly, you can roughly calculate 1 pound is approximately 1.5 kilograms. So if you would transfer 19 billion pounds, would be roughly 8.6 billion kilograms. And here I would like to remind you that in English, billion is translated into German as Milliarde. So don't get that confused. Okay. And according to one of the best estimates available, that's how much plastic waste ends up in our oceans every year. We're being overwhelmed by our waste, said Anna Jambak, an environmental engineer who led a 2015 study that determined the staggering number. According to Jambak's research, this figure is on track to double by 2025 unless something is done swiftly and at a global scale to stem the tide of garbage. Plastic, a versatile, vielseitig, durable and inexpensive material, has in many ways been a boon to humanity. Used in everything from medical equipment to parts of airplanes. But some of the very traits that have made plastic so popular have also made them a growing problem in our landfills and oceans. Today, plastics are the number one type of trash found in the sea. Okay, I'll just skip that paragraph. There are also untold numbers of extremely small plastic fragments in marine waters. Plastics are non-biodegradable, nicht biologisch abbaubar, and merely break down into smaller and smaller pieces. Okay, I would like to stop here because I already took some notes myself. So at home you can reread this text, of course, and you can go through the vocabulary. And I also wrote down the keywords and some good vocabulary. And with that, I'm going to talk about, just going to go back, about the pollution of our oceans, okay? So after having read the article during your presentation, you're going to maybe just take some few good examples, some good words which may help you to elaborate your arguments better. And it's also important to include your own ideas, I think, so that the examiners know that you really have reflected on that topic and that you know what you're talking about. Okay. Text. So 19 billion pounds per year, which is roughly 8.6 billion. Funny how kilograms per year. In the article, the author states that this number will have doubled by 2025. I think it's quite obvious what plastic waste consists of: soda bottles, plastic bags, take-out containers and drinking straws, which are usually household objects or which are used a lot in a normal household. So this is also something which is in our hands. Plastic is versatile. Maybe this is something you could write down in order for you to use that word again. Is versatile. As I already mentioned, it means vielseitig. Vielseitig. Durable, which means it lasts long. And inexpensive. Pensive, yes. Inexpensive. So, which is what is also mentioned in the text is that plastic debris, which means Trümmer, constitutes roughly 85% of all trash collected in the ocean, of course. I'll just write down the microplastics. So plastic basically not only exists in plastic bottles, but it splits down into smaller fragments, which then they get so basically the material gets destroyed by sunlight, which then makes it even smaller and smaller and smaller, and then it is considered as microplastics, which then can go basically anywhere. They will be in the ocean, of course. They will be in the nutrition of maritime animals. Then you will eat these animals, and well, these microplastics will be in your whole system. But not only humankind is affected, but everything basically. The whole ecosystem. Okay. And then maybe one or two last points. Maybe how plastic lands in the ocean. How does it land in ocean? Which is from mismanaged waste disposal. So I think if I remember correctly, in the 1950s, 60s, people were like, well, what are we going to do with that radioactive materials? And well, they decided to just dump it in the ocean, but they didn't even get that far out into the ocean. They just dropped it off the coast somewhere where there's a lot of fishing and a lot of people living there. So I don't know if they were aware of the hazards of dropping radioactive material, which will still be contaminated in, I don't know, millions of years, and they just drop it in a place where people are really living and where the nutrition is being used. So, and well, what was I talking about? And also from, not only from developing countries like Vietnam, Thailand, and so on, but also from industrial countries like the US, but also us. So basically every country produces some kind of litter or trash. I don't write US, I'll write every country. I don't want to discriminate anyone. Every country. Okay. So we'll have about 9 minutes left. Okay. And then I would like, so these could be some keywords you could extract from the text in order to support your presentation by facts or by a text, by an article. And then you can also add your own personal knowledge on water pollution. I will write down maybe also causes and effects, and then I will make a short summary what you could tell, and then I think we will be finished for today. So in general, I would also suggest you to always start with a definition. Doesn't really matter if it's a simple thing or a simple word. A definition is always good. So water pollution, water contamination is contaminated water, whether it is chemical, now we have particulate, so like the plastic particles, or bacterial matter, like from a decaying body or decaying corpse. The causes. So we have already extracted some causes from the text, and now we will add our own causes, which is increased sediment, which is basically Ablagerungsgestein. Then we have improper waste disposal. I won't write that down because we already have it. Leaching of soil pollution. Of soil pollution. Leaching. Just basically the Ausfluss. Exactly. Yeah, and organic material decay. So if, for example, an animal dies by the river or in a lake, which can have serious problems for people using that water, or for example in the groundwater, because there will be lots of bacteria and bacterial contamination. The effects are a decrease in drinkable water, lower water supplies for crops, also für die Ernte. And of course fish, and basically not only fish but wildlife around waters, for example frogs. Okay, so now I would like to sum up the type of water pollution and also run the text. So you can start your presentation on water pollution with some facts that should attract the audience attention. For example, did you know that 19 billion pounds per year are found in the oceans, and this number will be doubled by 2025. And most of the waste we find in the ocean or in the oceans is plastic. And there are a lot of advantages, of course, to plastic and the use of it, but also a lot of side effects, negative side effects. For example, plastic can be very useful when it comes to medicine or any kind of medical, how would you say that? Medical usage. I think it's very helpful and it's needed a lot, but it has negative effects in the way that as it's so easily accessible for people and as it's so cheap, it gets used way too much and gets also thrown away way too much. So if you look at in general what are the causes of water pollution, you basically find 3 or 4 main causes, which is increased sediment, Ablagerungsgestein. Then, as I already mentioned, improper waste disposal, which is most of the time connected with plastics, but also, as I mentioned before, radioactive material. The leaching of soil pollution, just the Ausfluss, and organic material decay. But in my opinion, plastic is the greatest threat of them all, because the problem with plastic is that it's not only the big bottles which pose a problem, which represent a problem for us, but also the effect that plastic splits into even smaller and smaller parts, which is triggered. This effect is triggered by sunlight, which then develops into microplastics, which then are able to get into the nutrition of our main source of nutrition, or not main source, but into fish, for example. Well, we then catch these fish and then we'll eat them, and the microplastics will also be inside our body, inside our blood system, and which can have very immensely negative effects. Well, let's stay with the effects. water pollution can lead to a decrease in drinkable water, lower water supplies for crop, and affects fish and in general wildlife. Okay, so I hope I gave you a lot of interesting information for your presentation. I hope I was able to help you with your preparation for the oral exam. I know it's a lot of specific vocabulary, but you have to know that in order to be specific. And
I wanted to add something.
Yes.
Because we got a comment.
Really?
Yes, from a girl, and she said that she likes your examples. So
Thank you. But if you have any questions, you can of course, well, don't hesitate to ask them. Thank you for your attention. We'll be seeing each other. Oh, you'll be seeing Sophia next week, and don't forget to tune in on Thursday at 5 p.m. I think, but you have to check on that. And I wish you a nice evening.